The Protégé Podcast. Your fortnightly look into the biggest things happening in the legal profession for the next generation of lawyers.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Protégé Podcast, the show for law students, grads, and junior lawyers right across the country who are hungry for insights, inspiration, and real conversations with the next generation of legal leaders. I'm your host, Grace Robbie, and today I'm thrilled to be joined by Naomi Shivaraman, legal affairs strategist at BlackBay Lawyers. Naomi, how are you?
Thanks for having me, Grace. It's great to see you and great to be here.
I know. I'm so excited for this conversation. We know we've been planning this a while on the backside of things, so I'm glad to have you in the studio. And for today's episode, me and Naomi will be diving into her impressive career journey from an award-winning journalist and producer with over 25 years in the industry to now training to become a solicitor. We'll chat about the challenges and opportunities that come with such a major career change and how her background in journalism is proving to be a real asset in the legal profession. But first, I would love to start by taking things right back to the beginning for you. Can you take us back to the early days of your career in journalism and tell us what inspired you to start working in that industry?
So I'm turning 43 in a few months. So I'm currently 42 years old. My career started when I was 14 years old. I was a bit of a naughty school kid and I didn't love school, but I did love talking to people and I was curious about, people and life and everything. And I got work experience at 6PR Radio when I was in high school, which is a talkback radio station in Perth. And I just remembered being so fascinated with the fact that, 1 minute I'm talking to the Prime Minister, you saw life, you listened to people that were sad or lonely or people who had these amazing stories. And from there, I then moved to Sydney. So I sort of worked my way up through the newsroom and did every single job, worked like a maniac, moved to Sydney for 6 weeks work at 2GB Radio in 2003. And that was only 6 weeks. And 20-something years later, I'm still here in 2026. So I moved over for 6 weeks work in radio. That led to an 11-year career at Channel 7 across as a journalist in news and current affairs. I worked at a current affairs show called Today Tonight. I was at Sunday night. I was the Channel 7 News Chief of Staff. And then I went to 60 Minutes, where I was for the last 6 years.
You really have covered so many well-known news publications and organisations, but you knew at 14 that you want to be a journalist. That's such a sort of early age to sort of know what you wanted to do within your career and the rest of your life, basically.
I think I just absolutely loved, when you're not an academic person, or I don't know, I didn't love books back then. Probably should start liking books now that I'm a mature age student. But I loved talking to people, and I just thought it was just this really exhilarating, eye-opening experience. And I think, back then it was a lot looser and faster to be able to sort of go into a workplace and get work experience. So yeah, I always knew that I wanted to be in the media, and I just thought, how cool, I get to have a career where I get paid to talk to people.
That's why I'm doing this right now. It's the greatest thing ever. You can be talking, like you mentioned, one person from such two completely different lives in the same day, and it's just no 2 days look the same. That's what I always say. I could never do the same old. But reflecting back on those 25 years, you listed some of those news organizations and channels that you worked with. What are some of those moments and experiences that you treasure most within your heart?
I think within my heart, and what always stands out is so when I was at 60 Minutes and Channel 7 it's the very fact that, I got to see life. You'll 1 minute you're seeing people at the extremities of life. You're seeing people whose children have just died, or you're meeting celebrities. You're seeing the extremities. You're seeing rich people, poor people, people who are suffering, people who are happy, people who are achieving all sorts of different things. And it was also the ability that, you get to connect or have a bit of a, I guess you get to connect with these people.
Yeah.
And you also saw people who had, were in dodgy situations. And that was, I think if you're a naturally curious person, then, you get this fascinating insight where they tell you their secrets. They tell you things that they haven't told their family members, or, for them to talk about what they've gone through or to tell their story was quite a cathartic experience for them. So I think what the situations that stood out for me, or the stories that stood out for me, was in 2019, there was that terrible accident, or there was that terrible scaffolding, construction site crash where the family, where a beautiful boy, 18-year-old Christopher Casanidi, was killed. He'd just started his career. And I will never forget the privilege, or just the heartbreak of being able to, I did a story with his parents, Rob and Patricia, who I'm still in touch with, and they're incredible people. But that stood out in my mind. I guess the unfairness of, you start your career and you just don't know how life changes either. Another story that really stands out in my mind, I have this habit of staying in touch with everyone that I do stories with.
I guess it shows how impactful and how much you actually care about it, though. I feel like that's such a beautiful thing to do, to keep on having those conversations with people that you have had, interviews with a couple years ago. It wasn't just in that moment and space. You want to keep building and having that existing relationship with them.
I think it's just I never took for granted the privilege of someone being able to trust you with their story, regardless of what, they may or may not have done, or regardless of the circumstances. In 2023, I won a Kennedy Award, which is an Excellence in Journalism award, for a story I did with a Sydney man and his wife. His name was Ben Smith, and he was falsely accused of a sexual assault and a crime that he never committed. And there were flaws in the police process and the police investigation. He was acquitted at trial, but it was such an important story for me in the sense of due process, of how, of evidence, and all of those things that you learn in a classroom at university that comes to life. And, I guess the importance of people getting a fair trial, of fairness, due process, and procedural fairness. So we're, of course, still in touch, and they've become great mates as well. But that they're the ones that's just stood out. And also, on a fun note, it hasn't all been doom and gloom. I got to go on Kiss's private jet. Kiss, the legendary band. We travelled together from London to Paris, and I got to document and see what it was like to be on the road with them. And they were doing one of their last tours to Australia, so that was an incredible highlight. I remember meeting Kelly Clarkson back in the day, and Bob Dylan has a song called The Hurricane, or Hurricane, and that was about a man called Hurricane Reuben Carter. He was a black man at the heart of the civil rights movement, who was jailed for 19 years for a murder he didn't do. And he came to Australia before he died, and I got to do a story with him. And I think what struck me was that he was such a happy guy, because if I'd been jailed for 19 years, for a crime I didn't commit, I would be so angry with the world. But I don't know, you meet these people and they have such an impact on your life, because you learn something, or you also learn about the resilience of the human spirit. And you also see how people react in these sorts of extreme situations where some people fall apart completely, and then others go on to do these amazing, acts of courage or advocacy, or they to cope as well. They throw themselves into helping the community. So I think for me, it was always the privilege of seeing and meeting all of those people, regardless of whether it was, happy or sad, but it was seeing the extremities of life.
That's amazing, because a lot of people within journalism, who are outside of the walls, think of journalism, clickbaiting, rage baiting these people into clicking articles. But the way that you were describing some of your highlights, it's having those intimate moments with people and opening up and still having impact on your life and continuously. It sort of shows that that is what journalism is at the end of the day. And it sounds like you've done, I could keep listening to all your stories. I was just sitting there in awe, but it sounds like you've been able to speak to and sort of have connections with so many amazing people from all different walks of life.
Yeah, and they don't necessarily all, journalists at times are completely hated. But you also have a responsibility to be able to, tell a story and to, be balanced and to seek comments from all sides of the story and to put forth and do your due diligence. So they're all really, interesting, good skills. When you talk about clickbait, yes, that is an issue with social media. But I think at the end of the day, you always, to be able to tell a story properly, to be able to get people who've gone through terrible situations to open up, people who are traumatized, I think that's a skill that is always going to be, dominant or important for journalists. That's not something I believe you don't learn that in a classroom. You learn that from being in a newsroom and you learn that from on the job, going out there. But you also learn the ethical side of it and how to be respectful. I guess it's stuff that it's an intuitive thing that you can't learn in a classroom.
Yeah. And after such a long and successful career as both a journalist and producer, working, like we mentioned, with some of the world's most recognizable brands and organizations, you're now studying and becoming a lawyer and working within BlackBay Lawyers as well. Mm-hmm. Was there a particular moment or turning point that inspired you to flip to that new career as being a lawyer?
I had always loved covering courts. I loved going to court, and I was always fascinated with the nuance. You can have a certain narrative, but what's going on? So you've got the court of public opinion versus the court of law. Mm. So, things like cancel culture and having certain narratives, that's all very prevalent now, especially with the advent of social media and the 24-hour news cycle. But when you sit through a trial and you actually see facts and you see evidence and you see, nuance and you see different perspectives. I always loved going to court to see all of that. And I always thought it was cool that, you represent defendants or plaintiffs, accused people, victims. You represent people of all sides. And I also value the fact that in Australia there is, we value as a society a fair trial, and that's something I don't take for granted. So I thought, I'd love to do, I don't have a uni degree. And I thought, I'm going to try out and apply for uni. And I didn't think I would get in. But I did a deal with myself. If I get in, I have to pursue it.
Yeah.
So then I get an email one morning, bleary-eyed, and it's like, you've gotten into Macquarie Uni. And I think I was like, I'm not going to swear, but I was like, oh, God, here we go. I have to do this now.
What have I signed myself
up to? But I just also went, you know what? It's an incredible opportunity, and to get an education is an incredible opportunity. And I just thought, this is fate. I have to do this. So I went and told my boss at 60 Minutes, and she was incredibly supportive, as were all of my colleagues there. But, it's not for the faint-hearted to be able to work full-time and to pay all the bills and still go to uni and, also pay for the costs for uni as well, which is, I guess, a challenge for anyone, whether you're a working mum or someone running a small business. Yeah. So you've got all of those considerations to think about. But I urge everyone, give it a go.
I love you went from 0 to 100. You're like, oh, I might apply for this. Oh, I'm actually doing it. Like, that's so funny to me.
I don't know. I have had moments where I've thought, am I insane? I would be. So I was fortunately, I got in 2020, and so for about 5 years, I was working at 60 Minutes full time as a journalist producer, and I would be traveling around everywhere. And I'd get back to the hotel room after a day of filming or a day of meetings or putting a story together. And, you just want to crash out because you're so exhausted. But I'd then be like, I've got to do the assignment, or I've got to sit the test. And fortunately, there are ways these days where you can sit the test at 2 a.m. Yeah. You are very tired, so try not to sit the test at 2 a.m. So there were all of those sorts of things of making it happen and trying to juggle everything.
we're going to continue talking about the challenges and opportunities right after this break. And welcome back. So like you mentioned before, you are currently completing your law degree, but you're also mentioning before the break that you were also working with 60 Minutes full-time while completing that, and mentioning some of the challenges and obstacles that do come with that. Can you delve in a bit more into the day-to-days and what your reality looked like as being a law student who's not just doing a law student, completing a law degree in general was already a difficult task within itself, but balancing that with a full-time job within a very dynamic and busy newsroom like 60 Minutes. Can you walk through those day-to-day challenges and sort of the hurdles that you had to overcome to manage both differing aspects of your life?
So being a journalist and being a TV producer, they are all-encompassing jobs. They're not necessarily 9 to 5 jobs. You know, you take calls on the weekend, or you're filming on the weekends, or it's 7 days a week. It's not something I'm complaining about. I absolutely loved it. I've always had a very strong work ethic, and I always used to think, I might not be good at one thing, but I know how to work really hard.
Yeah.
And I think so. In terms of 60 Minutes and in terms of being a journalist, you are, reading covering all the, in terms of being a journalist and being a TV producer working at 60 Minutes, your day starts early, you're reading all the newspapers, you're trying to, you're putting together stories, you're meeting different people, you're doing all your research on the stories and everything. And often we would do global international stories as well. So you're dealing with overseas time differences. So I would frequently stay up and, try and talk to people, have Zoom calls with overseas, people. And I absolutely loved that because, you get to talk to the people who are at the center of a media storm. But what happened with that was I would also then have to juggle the study. But then I had to tell myself, look, if I've got time to watch Netflix or binge a series, then I do have time to read my books or
it's just
or
shifting
do the
priorities.
Work. Yes. Yeah, that absolutely is. So when I first started, I started just before COVID. So I'd be going to my 60 Minutes office around the corner here in North Sydney, and then I would catch the train back and forth to Macquarie University, do the class, come back, and I would go home if I wasn't on the road filming, and then, eat some dinner or whatever, and then hit the books again or try and, I was always scrambling for the next class or the next deadline. Yeah. What I will say, and I learned very quickly, is that, you can't just do everything at the last minute. You have to keep across when the deadline is. Yeah. So and I wish I had the energy also of an 18-year-old who can quickly do the assignment at the last minute. But I think at the end of the day, the most important thing was time management. Yeah. So if the assignment was due in a month, or they give you, the assignment's due on this date, you can't wait till that date to actually do it. No. If you're me, that is, and you have a full-time job. And also, I think people who are parents or people who work, I think they're also amazing because they do understand how to work smarter and not harder, and to juggle the time and juggle all of those responsibilities.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds like you were being very proactive in the way that you're going around doing your degree and working full time. Any sort of time that you had spare on you, say commuting and all that, sounds like you had your priorities set and you knew that at the end of the day, it has to be done, unfortunately. You can't just push it off in the backside and someone else is going to do it. It sounds like you had a very heads-on sort of approach to completing that degree.
And also COVID, I started it just before COVID, and I remembered sitting in a lecture theatre going, oh my gosh, I'm a uni student now. Then COVID happened, so then everything converted to online, which did help in terms of having a full-time job. Yeah. But it also means that you have to self-motivate a lot because when it's a different vibe when you're in a lecture theatre or you're in a classroom. I think when you do it online, you have to, make the deadlines, or you have to be, on the ball the whole time.
And then how did you feel going back to uni? Well, I didn't even know that you didn't go to uni for journalism, but how did it feel, I guess, entering uni for the first time as a mature age student? Did you feel like there was embedded challenges that came with that? Did you feel like bit of, I know when I speak to other mature age students, there was a bit of isolation to it, but I guess the way that you were completing it in such a fast-paced sort of scrantic way that maybe that didn't occur. But what was that journey like?
I think being a mature age student, it was incredibly daunting at first because I thought, oh my gosh, I'm surrounded by 18, 19-year-olds. And also it's learning, there was just a lot to learn in terms of study. You know, I was still buying all the textbooks. You can get everything online. It was just little things like that I had to learn and pick up on. And also I was just also very conscious that mature age students, or I had someone say to me, oh, you know, you guys have a reputation for wanting to chitty chat too much after class. Or, you know, so I was just very conscious of trying not to be annoying in class. But I was very fortunate because I did meet a whole bunch of, you know, new and interesting, you know, uni friends who, and for me, age, I don't see the age difference anymore. You know, I actually learned a lot from people who were a lot younger than me in terms of how to, you know, do your study notes and just basic things like that. So, and also I think a part of my personality is I kind of don't care what people think. So I know I did ask the questions. The teachers were really, it was a lot of the teachers were really supportive and you know, they would be intrigued about, you know, being a journalist at the same time or you know, but I never sort of took, I never took advantage really of, I would just always try and make the deadlines. I never did the special considerations. And I just always thought, you know, look, it's my responsibility for the time management and, you know, you just have to hustle and get on with it.
On the flip side, obviously you mentioned all the challenges and some of the hurdles that you had to overcome with starting your law degree later in life, but also balancing your work as a journalist. But do you feel like there was also an advantage or a unique set of skills that you had equipped with you as being a journalist that helped you complete your law degree and has continued to sort of trickle on later within your legal career as well, once you've now working with BlackBay Lawyers as well?
So I think one of the great advantages of being a journalist is that I feel like I've seen it all. So nothing shocks me in terms of, you know, often, and I'm really understanding about the fact that when people come to a law firm, you know, they're most likely having a terrible time. And, you know, they're sad or they're incredibly distressed. So it's made me incredibly empathetic towards clients and what they might be going through as well. And also being a journalist, I think for me personally, you know, I also think, okay, I'm not here to be judgmental about what a client has done, and that fiduciary duty that they teach you, that you learn about, you know, the importance to the client. For me, it's parallel to the importance of the people I was doing stories with. Yeah. And also as a journalist, it would, I love writing.
Yeah.
So, you know, when it comes to law, I really love the writing part as well. So, you know, the writing of correspondence, the writing of letters, you know, it's a different sort of way with words. So that's just a small kind of fun part that I like. Being a journalist, you are so used to deadlines. Law has its fair share of deadlines. It's the dealing with, you know, all sorts of people from different walks of life. It's also you're dealing with conflict, you're dealing with disputes. And BlackBay Lawyers has been fantastic because they actually created a role, my role as a legal affairs strategist. So it's not only a paralegal role, not only do I get to be a paralegal, I also assist in-house with their internal communications. I deal with the media. So they were really smart in how they utilised my skills and my background. And that's proven really handy because often there are clients that are at the centre of a media storm or and, you know, not only are they dealing with the stress of the legal process, but they're dealing with the stress of the court of public opinion, of people calling them, of journalists calling them. So in that sense, I'm able to help the clients, and that's pretty cool as well.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting thing because when you think about it, law and journalism, there's a lot of interactions. Like you mentioned, when there's high profile cases, or when us within journalism or PR want to reach out to law firms and seeing what's happening, having you or someone else that has journalism experience or communication experience within the industry proves to be extremely helpful and sort of knowing of what needs to be done in regard to that sort of aspect. So I wonder, do you reckon that, just pivoting around that, I've actually thought, hold on. Do you feel like it would be sort of advantage and helpful for law firms to employ and seek out individuals that are doing, a combined law degree with communications, to have someone in their back pocket equipped in already an understanding of what needs to be done within more of the communication aspect of things in running a law firm, and the media aspects and now social media as well?
I don't necessarily think it's specifically the double degree, but I think it's important to find people that perhaps have a bit of a media literacy, that they're across what's going on in the newspapers, they're across what's going on in TV, even if they love popular culture, because so much of our lives, and whether it's social media or traditional media or broadcast media, it is a big part of society. It is a big part of our lives. And it is a big part of mass communications of being able to also simplify or, communicate with journalists. So I do think, it is a good idea. It's not, I don't think it's necessarily the double degree, but I think it's also looking at, is there a non-traditional background there? Have they perhaps worked in a newsroom? I think anyone who's worked in a newsroom, it is a tough place. Yeah. Because you're dealing with huge deadlines. It's adrenaline. You're running all day. You're trying to figure out the story. You're filming the story. You're making the story, and you've got the deadline to get the bulletin to air that night. Yeah. So that's why I always think people who've come directly from newsrooms, or whether they've done the social media for a newsroom, they have the ability to think on their feet and to write really quickly. And to it's also the art of communicating really simply to clients, or whether it's writing an article for the website or something, that, they're all really useful skills for law firms. Yeah,
I guess also, like you were mentioning before, that there's a lot of parallels that comes with working within journalism and within law, like you mentioned, speaking with clients, but it's also like the investigation part of being a journalist, wanting to find the truth and come to answers and solutions, which is some of the fundamental skills and daily responsibilities of being a lawyer as well. So one might think that, coming from your perspective as being a journalist, like that's a completely massive career jump, which it is, but there's also some fundamental skills and just human basic skills that you learned within working with a newsroom that would be so efficient and effective in being a lawyer as well.
I definitely, firstly, there's work ethic. There's, you have to work hard, and but also I think it's the exposure to life, and it's the exposure to very extreme situations where people always say, oh, law firms are tough places. But for me, no, they're very pleasant places.
It's actually
that's been my experience so far. Yeah. So, and God love BlackBay Lawyers, who do value a different and non-traditional background.
Well, I'm talking with Naomi Shivaraman, and we'll be right back. And welcome back. You've been mentioning about your time working with BlackBay, and I'm interested to know, how has your experience been working within a law firm? You were mentioning before this that you're finding a bit more pleasant than working within a newsroom, and how chaotic it can be, because some people just see, Carl Stefanovic presenting the news. There's a lot of things going behind the scenes to make that sort of stuff produced so well. How has your time been working with BlackBay Lawyers?
They're an incredibly supportive and nurturing bunch where, I feel really fortunate because I, started with them 2 years out of graduating. I still have to go to the College of Law this year, but, just really basic things like, you're not taught civil process properly, or you're not, taught where are the forms or how do I do this. Yeah. So they've been really supportive in terms of learning all the basics, and the terminology, and it's learning a whole new language. So they've been terrific. especially, really enjoy the media defamation, reputational side of things. That's something I can bring all my skills to. So they do a lot of, we do a lot of reputation management and defamation and those sorts of things, but all sides, plaintiff and defendant. So it's quite fun to sort of, and you see these terrific lawyers in action, and they explain everything to you and really teach you from scratch. So I feel really fortunate to be with BlackBay Lawyers.
That's amazing. So I'm glad to hear that you're enjoying your time working within BlackBay and your first step within your legal career and legal journey. But have there been any sort of hurdles or challenges that you've faced from going from the newsroom to now working within a law firm?
I think it's learning new software. It's learning new skills. It's and it's also learning. I take my hat off to all the lawyers. They're all amazing at the. It's also learning the administration side of things. It's learning. Basic things like formatting documents and things. I never had to do that as a journalist. Yeah. You just open your computer, you write, you're watching your vision. So it's the technical side. And I know it sounds really kind of, small, but, to learn all the different softwares at my age or, at 42 or, in your 40s, that I think at first that's been quite daunting at times. But it's still the juggle as well, where I've also got to stay motivated for uni, because once you're in a law firm, I'm just like, I'm in a law firm.
Yeah.
and then you think, don't slack off at uni. So
I still got to pass these exams and assignments
I know.
to be able to work and get my degree.
Yes. Yeah, I know. I need to get the degree to be able to then keep working at the law firm. So
No, I love it. And before you were mentioning how you were very interested in becoming a lawyer because of the exposure and what you were seeing within the court system as being a journalist, and the interviews that you were doing and seeing the judicial side of things and wanting to be more involved within that aspect. Since now still doing a law degree and now working within a law firm, how does experiencing law from the inside compare to your perspective when you were reporting on it? Has anything sort of changed in the way that you view things?
Yeah, there's the court of public opinion and there's the court of law. So when you're involved in the court of law, you see the importance of I guess, the process being fair, and you see the importance, you see things more factually. A lot of the times I think, storytelling, when it is or people who read a newspaper or watch a story or only see what's being reported, or a person walking outside of court, they form their own view about that particular person. Whereas when you are within the court system, you see nuance a lot more. Yeah, you have the court of public opinion and you have the court of law. There are parallels and there are differences. The parallels are that you're trying to report all sides. But I think the difference is that the court of public opinion, the public can be quite emotional in how they perceive a person who's accused or a defendant. Whereas, the court of law, when you're in the law, you see a lot more of the inside facts that, aren't allowed to come out yet. Yeah. You see a lot more context. You see a lot more of, you see the other side of the story. Or you see the other side of the matter. So I think that's the big difference.
I was going to say, on the flip side, how has studying law and seeing, I guess on the flip side, how has studying law changed how you view the media's role in reporting on legal issues?
Studying law makes you have a better understanding of the fact that, there are people on all sides. There's plaintiffs, defendants, and that you might not get the full picture of what's going on because the reporting of a story might be hindered by the legal process or, who is available to talk about the story. I think studying law has made me realise, or very hyper aware, that there are so many sides to a story that sometimes a lot of the facts or a lot of the details of that particular matter have not been reported publicly. And I think studying law has made me understand nuance a lot more. I mean, I always had a great understanding of it. And always as a journalist, you strive to do your due diligence of finding out certain things and, engage in a rigorous fact-checking process. But studying law has made me, realise that, there might be a lot more background it's given me a better understanding of people. I mean, I always understood people and felt great empathy for them, but studying law's made me kind of understand that a lot more. And also studying law's made me realise that Australia, we're not a perfect legal system, nowhere is, but in terms of fairness, we're a lot better than many other countries out there.
And before we wrap up today, what advice would you give professionals who are thinking about making a major career change later in life but feel unsure and a little fearful about stepping into something completely new to them?
I always think in life, if you have an ambition or you want to give something a go, I just think just do it, make a decision and just back yourself, because what's the worst that can happen? You go back to the thing that you were doing previously. That's, nothing's so much a failure, or you haven't failed if that happens. I think life is a series of chapters and you should just try something if you really want to give it a go. I completely understand, and I've gone through it myself, that there are financial constraints in trying to, pay for a university degree. Or I don't have children, but I really admire the people who have children and are working and want to study at the same time. That's 24 hours a day. So my advice to people is to definitely give it a go. I always think there's ways to make things work. But just also don't give up and don't think that you don't get overwhelmed by your age. Don't get overwhelmed by the fact that people might have come straight from school. And just also know that you learn, you have so many different life skills that you can bring. So I started my career in a newsroom at 6PR Radio when I was 14 years old. So I always believed that on-the-job experience is so important. That's why 2 years out of graduating from my degree, I decided to get a job at BlackBay Lawyers, because I think that there's so much that you can't learn in the classroom and the practical side that you need to learn within the actual workplace. When I was trying to get a job in a law firm, I was at first ringing legal recruiters, and recruiters were basically, some of them were like, good luck, you don't fit the textbook kind of, cookie cutter mold of a traditional law student or uni student. That just gave me more determination to think, well, if you say no to me, I'm just going to try a lot harder. So that's why I thought, no, I have so many skills to bring, as do so many other mature age students or so many other people from non-traditional backgrounds who don't come straight from school. You might be a tradie, but that means that you've got the ability, you've worked to deadlines, you've worked on really big projects, and you've also run a small business. So when you're helping or representing people that might be in a business dispute, you understand what they're going through. And my message mainly is to legal recruiters, to all the ones that told me no, that you're not from a traditional background and, you might not be an HD student or you need to do this. I'm like, well, I consider the people that have come from non-traditional backgrounds and think outside the square, because you could have been a librarian or a school teacher or, a bus driver, but there are still so many left of field skills that you will bring to becoming a terrific lawyer.
100%. And Naomi, thank you so much for your time and speaking with me today and joining me in the studio, matter of fact, as well.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you. And to also, I just hope if anyone who's listening to this is thinking about pursuing a legal career and might be overwhelmed, just give it a go. Do it. You can, because if I can, you can.
No, I feel like people will be definitely inspired by your journey and what you've got to say as well. And I also want to thank the listener for tuning in. If you enjoy this episode, please give us a rating and a review on whatever platform you use to listen to a show, as it will help other lawyers discover and enjoy this. And if you have any other ideas of other episodes we can run in the future, please get in touch at editor@lawyersweekly.com.au. You can also reach us on social media. See you again next time.